You were listening to episode 241 of the Game Deflators Podcast. My name's John, and I'm joined by Brian.
Hey, everybody, here at the Game Deflators Podcast, we like to talk about games. We've recently picked up games we're currently playing, and we fight the controls to rid the land of bad custard in this week's Inflation Deflation Challenge.
So this week we played a little bit of Kingsley's Adventure on the PlayStation 1.
Played,
Ryan,
John. Played is a generous word.
It really is. So I told Ryan before we recorded, I was like, before there was Dark Souls, and he corrected me and said Demon Souls, there was Kingsley's Adventure, and this is the Prepare to Die edition. So let's get started with the episode, though. You can find us on thegamedeflators.com, our currently up-to-date website. You can also find us on social media at Game Deflators on Twitter, at The Game Deflators on Instagram and Facebook. Find us on YouTube. Just search in Game Deflators, and a podcast app you're listening to right now. Leave us a 5-star review.
Hey, and sometimes you can even check us out on other people's podcasts. Recently, we appeared on the PlayStation Collectors Podcast, and that was a pretty fun time.
Yeah, we're also on YouTube Music now, actually, so I got that set up.
Nice.
Yeah, they do podcasts on there now, which is kind of cool. Okay, pickups. I picked up 4 PS5 games this week. I got Deathloop, Ghostwire Tokyo, The Quarry, and Pathless. And I realized that, like...
Were these all the PS Plus games? Or you actually bought these?
I actually bought these.
Dang.
Yeah, I mean...
It looks like a really solid PS Plus lineup.
Yeah, right? So, GameStop had their, like, 4 for 20, 4 for 40 deal.
Mm-hmm.
And so I picked these up as part of that deal. So I'm pretty excited about it. I mean, Ghostwire Tokyo, I heard quite a bit from you on that one, so definitely excited to jump into that. Deathloop, we actually interviewed Mark Whitten, who happens to be on that game, so it was pretty cool. Go check out that episode. The Quarry, I think you had mentioned that you couldn't get into it, but it's my style of game.
Yeah,
that,
we played an episode of like the first chapter or something, and it was okay.
Yeah, and so the other one being Pathless, that one kind of looks kind of cool. You know, it's got like that blocky animated style characters. So it's like a 10-hour game, and it had really good reviews. So I figured, why not? That, and it was the last game that I chose out of this group because they didn't have a whole lot of PS5 and even PS4 games that were in that 4 for 20 deal at the location I went to. Also, I picked up more D&D paint. So to add
not
to that
enough
collection,
paint.
Not enough paint. Yeah. So I've been painting minis this week, which has been great. And I picked up 3 different Citadel paints, like the texture ones. So these are the ones that I think you told me about this, or my brother did, where you paint on the base. And if you want like rocks, you just kind of like slap this paint on there. And as it dries up, it forms into rocks. And then there's another one
I haven't
where,
seen that.
And there's another texture one where if you paint it on there, and once it dries, it actually forms cracks like you would have in like a desert. You know, where you have like
a dry lake bed kind of effect?
Yeah, it's got that type of effect to it. So I bought some of those. And then I also got, what was the other paint I got? Dry mud was the effect from Army Painters. So I got that one. And the whole concept of this is to make sure that my minis just look good for all of you when we play. And I'm having fun with it, dude. I mean, I painted 2 dwarves this week. I painted 2 knights, and then I also painted 3 hobgoblins, and I cleaned up a little bit on my what do you call it, my owlbear that I made last week. I also bought some metallic army painters, so like this nice blue shiny metallic look, as well as this like fairy dust effect.
Cool.
So with the blue, I went in with like this light blue metallic in the certain areas, and it kind of made things pop as if they were like what would you call it? The thing. What's that?
Sparkly?
No, you know those like creatures that can bioluminescent. So it had like a bioluminescent effect on certain areas that I painted, which is pretty cool. And then I hit like the wood and stuff on that particular mini of the owlbear with the fairy dust effect, and like certain areas kind of sparkle, which is cool. So definitely excited about that. And then picked up a couple minis as well. So my wife at some point wants to run her own campaign, and she has ideas on what she wants us to play. So not for what us to play as in characters, but the story. And I decided that for that, I'm going to play a human bard. So I will play a character that sleeps with everything and everyone. So I can't wait. That'll be fun.
Nice.
Okay, now currently playing, I am still playing White Knight Chronicles. So I got to the desert in this game. So it's probably about 4 or 5 chapters in, or scenes in. And I'm still having some pretty good fun with it. You know, it reminds me of an older school Final Fantasy, but just with that action, you know, RPG combat style.
That's like the newer school Final Fantasy.
Kind of. It has like the old school vibe in terms of the knights and all that. And I guess 16 is knights and such. So I kind of went back to that vibe, but it has that like old school Final Fantasy vibe. Jeez. I'm just like phlegmy, dude, on this podcast episode today. But it has that old school vibe. And that's just kind of what I was looking for in terms of an RPG. And I'm enjoying it still. I'm at a point now where I do have to level grind. So that kind of sucks. But overall, not too bad. So
Nice.
How about yourself?
No pickups for me this week. I watched the Nintendo Direct. I guess we could talk a little bit about that here because we don't have an article or anything about it. And I thought it was like a pretty good looking Direct. I've never played Super Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Stars, but I love me some Paper Mario. So I was like, you know what? I bet that's on the Switch SNES like library. Nope. But it is on the SNES Classic. So booted that up for the first time in a minute and started playing that. And you know what? I think it's fun to kind of go back and revisit stuff with like the actual controller. Like I know it's emulated, but I mean, it's not like I'm really getting a big difference of experience on this game. And I don't know, like I do enjoy going back and revisiting stuff with a Super Nintendo controller, and I messed around with that for like a couple hours. I didn't get very far or do very much in it, but it is kind of a fun throwback, and you know, does have all that stuff that I know of from like, you know, my experiences with Mario RPGs that came out later. I don't think that that's probably a game that like I'll go out and buy the remake of it. And I think I was just kind of messing around with it. I was really heavily thinking about The Darkness and Pikmin this week. So I think I am going to have to gear up and play those soon, although I will be on a trip next weekend. So it may yet be a little while before I can get to them, but I will get to them soon-ish.
Nice.
Yep.
Good stuff, man. So let's see. I guess if you want to quickly talk about, before we dive into our Holy Grail topic, some of the things that you were excited about with the Switch Direct or Nintendo Direct. For me, I actually was kind of excited about Super Mario Bros. Wonder. It did have, you know, obviously it looks like another new Super Mario Bros., right? But it has all of the effects of things moving and the colors and everything else. So it has a different type of feel to it in comparison to other Mario games that have been released that are 2D. So I got pretty excited about that. Detective Pikachu. I didn't play the first one, but for some reason I kind of want to after seeing the second one. So that's one to get excited about for me. And then the last one here, I'm just trying to go through the list here to make sure I don't miss
Star
anything.
Ocean, the second story R. That looks incredible.
It does.
Have you been into the Star Ocean games?
I actually beat that one. So I wasn't as excited for it. Like, it's really cool. All the 3D aspects have been, like, all the upgrades have been made to the background, but the character sprites are exactly the same. So I was like, if I'm going to play a remake of a game, you know, I want it to be like updated characters as well. And that's what kind of killed it for him. Like, I'm just going to get the same feel and experience just with updated backgrounds, which at that point, whatever. But I will say, though, I highly, highly recommend that you play that one.
Yeah, that one looked pretty good. That's
actually one of my favorite RPGs of all time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that Myth Force looked pretty cool. The one that's like a Saturday morning cartoon kind of drop in and pick up multiplayer. That looks kind of like a fun idea. God, I don't know. The Sonic Superstars, we had already seen that. The Metal Gear Solid collection. That's definitely one that I want to pick up. Like, I don't own any copies of Metal Gear. I've never played any of them, and it is a shame that like almost all of that game is going to be download and not on the cart. Like I
Yeah.
think the cart is basically just like the menu and launcher, and then you have to download everything else. But like it comes with like the old games, it comes with like 3 of the like middle games, it comes with like the guidebooks, it comes with the comic books. Like it's got so much extra love and attention in there. Like if it was all on the cart, it would be, you know, perfect chef's kiss. But like with this, it's still just very enticing as somebody who hasn't already bought those games like 2 or 3 times to finally have it all in like the Switch as a playable place. And especially since I'm so comfortable with the Switch as a digital platform, I think this is like a steal of a deal to pick up. But also, I guess because of all of that digital content, this is not going to be something you can really sleep on and pick up used. You're going to have
Yeah.
to pick it up new and hope that you get through all of it before the servers go down eventually.
Yeah, another one that caught my eye was Penny's Breakaway. So that's a little 3D action platformer. And you know how I am about platformers. So I definitely think that is one to keep an eye on as well. So lots of good stuff that came out of that, man.
Yeah. Pikmin 4, that still looks really good. Pikmin 1 and 2 HD versions coming out on Switch. Yeah, I think this is going to be a pretty good end of this year, and it's got a lot of the things that we were saying, you know, last week. Like they're really going to start to fill out that calendar by throwing back to some old school stuff that'll be easy to move over and not necessarily really looking to break the mold on anything new that's going to, you know, push the old Switch too hard before they could kick off the marketing campaign for Switch 2, Wii U, Electric Boogaloo Plus Pro model, whatever.
Did you see what was the other one? Gloomhaven is going to have a
Yeah.
tactical RPG on there as well.
So, I mean, if this is basically could be considered like a tutorial for how to play the actual board game version,
It's worth
it might do really well.
That game is like notoriously hard to like comprehend, I've heard.
I mean,
have
it's
it,
RP,
but
it's D&D in a box with no DM, so it's like everything that happens has a rule in the book that you need to follow. So it's like I'm sure that a wiki and a searchable PDF are your friends in that game.
absolutely. So that's one that I think I will pick up because Gloomhaven does give me some interest, right? Like I am interested in playing.
I mean,
that
you
at some
bought
point.
it forever ago. I remember we opened it and went through it, and we were like, "Wow,
Yeah.
that's a lot of stuff." And then we closed it
Yeah.
up, and I'm sure it's never seen the light of day again.
It's been open a couple times. Like honestly, I've been going back and forth. Like once we're done with Strixhaven, what I want to do for D&D, and it's like Gloomhaven and Dark Souls are the two that like continually come up in my mind that I want to play. So
Yeah.
I just
I mean,
don't
you
know
can
how the
start
rest
painting
of
those minis now.
God, man, there's so many. I don't know. Dark Souls one, I kind of want to keep as is. I don't think I need to paint those. Like they just,
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see. I might have some good fun with those. They're big though. I got so many damn Dark Souls minis, and I have to pick up more because more got released. So I'm kind of screwed in that respect. I've got to get more minis now, and I don't know where to put them. Ryan,
Upstairs, you know, right
upstairs,
next to where you play.
right? Yeah, right. No, we don't play upstairs though.
I know that's the joke.
Oh,
John's
I
got
got
like
you.
this whole like chest of all of his minis and stuff, and then it's like a hike up and down the stairs. Like if you were playing a game where you actually had to set up like a whole bunch of stuff, you'd be like up and down, up and down.
That's actually what I do before you guys come over.
Mhm.
Usually I pull like all the minis that I need, but occasionally I'll need like one more mini and I forget. I'm like, oh crap, I got to run back upstairs and get it.
At least you
That
don't have
is,
terrain that you got to move.
yeah, that's a good point. If I had to move terrain, we'd probably be playing upstairs permanently.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm good with the TV though. That's
Just wait, in your third house, you'll have like a basement that's just going to be like those super elaborate D&D rooms where you've got like, you know, the full field tables that are all like flocked and have like flowing water and stuff. And you'll have like all these like just shelves on the walls of minis and terrain to pick from.
oh God, I wish.
One day, John. One day.
No, probably not. I mean, we would definitely need a bigger house than what we got right now.
That's what I'm saying. You need a basement. That's what basements are for.
Yeah,
Nerd
dude,
stuff.
You know how hard it is to get a damn basement in Arizona?
Yeah.
Yeah. I've looked, trust me.
Darn
That was what we were
caliche.
Yeah, we were looking for basements initially. If we had a big enough property, like I'd be down to build a separate thing in the back,
The D&D shed.
the D&D shed, yeah. Specifically for D&D. We would call it the dungeon. That's
There
what it
you
would be. Yeah. All right. Discussion topic. I proposed to Ryan, not propose Ryan, but I proposed to Ryan the topic of holy grails in gaming. So personal holy grails. And it is, a game that you either have now or one that you want and why. Doesn't have to be a long discussion, but just figure it'd be a little fun one to discuss because we really hadn't talked about this in the past.
Yeah.
So I'll let you kick it off first.
So a couple of years ago, I was watching, I think it's a Nick Robinson video where he's showing off like cool stuff at his house. And he showed me something that I had never seen before. And I just thought it was cool as hell. And I was like, oh my God, I want that. But it's probably really expensive. And it is. And it's like a hard to find thing, probably. I mean, I see them listed here online. So it's as hard to find as the money to put together to purchase it is. But back on the GBA, they did a bunch of releases of classic Famicom games. And they made a whole bundle of them. I think there's like 30 of them. And if you bought them, you could like send in the codes or whatever to Club Nintendo and get like a special display box for them. And they're these big boxes, and they've got like a fold out case that has 10 of these classic mini NES Famicom games that are all ported for Game Boy, and they've got like kind of a cool display box and like the cover of like the original title in there. They look really cool. I love tiny things and like retro game stuff. And I mean, these are games that I haven't played many of them, and I likely am not really interested in playing them. But I just think the aesthetic of this, and like when you have like all the boxes and they've got like all the like throwback art on there and stuff, I just think this is like super cool. And I would definitely like love to have these as like a display piece item, but it's like $2,000 for like the full set now.
Yeah, I looked at it online. I see like 1 through 11 is like $700 right now, not including tax.
Yeah, so there's just there's a lot in there that really appeals to me and my tiny retro like aesthetic that I really dig. Like I love the Game & Watches that came out, the Mario and the Zelda one. Like I would love if they made more of those. Like I was really hoping for like a Metroid one or something to come out. So yeah, I just think that's super cool. And ever since I saw it, I've been like, oh my God, I want that so bad.
Yeah, meanwhile, by the way, you can buy right now online for like less than $300 100 Famicom games. Like just random.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that to me is actually a pretty good deal if you're looking to just mess around with games that are Japanese.
Mm-hmm.
So nice. That's a cool one. I didn't know that was a thing. So yeah, definitely learned something new today on the podcast.
Yeah, that, and probably in like second place would be something just like, weird, like an N64 DD or something like that.
Yeah.
Just because it's like one of those weird things that like I've never even seen or interacted with one, or like maybe just something like, I mean, the ultimate holy grail, like the Nintendo PlayStation or something that there's like one of in existence.
Yeah, this would be pretty cool. To have in a collection for sure, especially like that Nintendo PlayStation. Like just something that's sitting there that you can't do anything with. That you're just like, it's there. I have it. Yeah. Enjoy. Look at it.
And then like the biggest like holy grail thing that I have like for myself is like probably the Famicom Game Boy Micro. Like again, tiny retro aesthetic. Like when I went to Japan and I picked that up, like that was something that I had wanted since it came out here, but like I already had a regular Game Boy Micro and I wasn't about to pay $100 to get another one, even though like $100 is like an absolute steal for like a new in-box one of those. Like, should have picked up 5.
Yeah. So for me, Holy Grail wise, I already have my personal, and that was Dot Hack Quarantine. And I know you questioned why the hell that was my Holy Grail, and I'll give you my reason. Dot Hack Quarantine was a game that I had my eye on prior to collecting, right? And so
Haven't
rolling
you
it back,
always been collecting?
not really, no. So early on, I bought Dot Hack 1, right? Really enjoyed the game. And then I just didn't play them anymore after that. I was like, well, that sucks, right? And, I had other games I wanted to move on and play. And I just completely forgot about the series. Then college happened, and there happened to be a game store that I ended up working at for years after that. But before I worked there, they had Dot Hack 1, 2, 3, and 4. They had the full bundle. And at the time, it was like $70 or $80 for all 4 of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, shoot, like I'm a poor college student, but I really want that. So I'm like, can you please set that aside for me? And I'll save up some money over the next couple of weeks and I'll buy it. And they were like, oh yeah, no problem. Like no problem at all. So they literally set the games aside for me because we had become pretty good friends with the owners there. And who obviously gave me a job down the road, so they put those aside and I picked them up for like $80 later on, which is great. And so fast forward, I still haven't beat the 3 and 4, but I beat 1 and 2 and really enjoyed those games. And they really were like my holy grail in the aspect of, at the time, they were still a decent price. $80 for the set of 4 was still a decent price at the time for decent in terms of cost, right? It was a little high for me at the time. And yeah, I mean, just knocking that off kind of started to domino effect into other games that I hadn't played. And that really kind of kickstarted the collecting again by getting those 4 games. So like games like that are really what kind of set me onto the path that I am now. So it has more significance in that aspect as well. So that is my holy grail, personally speaking. Now, if there was, or that I have, now if there's one that I want that I don't have, it'd probably be Echo Night Beyond is one that I've been looking at. And I want to say if it's a horror game or it's an RPG, one of the two. So that's one that's also been on my list for a number of years.
It's my holy grail. I don't know much about it.
I mean, look, you know how I am as far as collecting.
It's a
right?
2004 survival adventure or survival horror adventure.
It's like a mix of both.
FromSoft.
It's a mix of both like the RPG aspect and the horror aspect. And so if you know my collecting habits, right? I collect PS2 or not PS2. I collect RPG and I collect horror games. So that's like a marrying of the two. And it's always been on the list, but I think it's like $250, $300 now. It's pretty high up there last I checked. Might have gone down actually.
I see a 160, 150 on eBay listings on the top of Google here.
Complete in box.
Yeah, looks like it.
Ooh, okay. I think I have a new target.
I know. I was just kind of looking too. Like another one of my holy grails. Like I love Paper Mario. We were just talking about this like 10 minutes ago in the intro, but like I remember so hard. I got Paper Mario and then I had to go like shoe shopping and run errands with my mom afterwards. And that's just like the worst thing as a small child. And I just remember like staring a hole through the box and like going through the manual and like I don't have it anymore, obviously, since a long time ago. Like I would love a complete in box of Paper Mario, but it's like $300. And honestly, I don't have an N64 to play like the cart on. So I think a better option for me, I'm looking online here and I could just get like a repro of the box for like $10 on Etsy. Like that's a way better investment for me. I'd get all the nostalgia and everything I want out of it for just the price of a box.
Yeah. And if you want to go that far, you could just buy a repro of the actual cart.
I wouldn't even use it for anything. Like I just really want to look at the box.
Nostalgia.
Maybe the manual.
Nostalgia. Buy the manual as well, repro. Just do the whole thing, repro.
Yeah.
It's worth it. I mean, what, $40 instead of $300? I'd do it. Sounds like a damn good investment to put on your wall for sure. I mean, come on, think about it. Artwork, right? If you had artwork and you were buying a high priced piece of artwork that you were putting on display to look at it, kind of the same concept. You're just buying a reproduction of a Mario game.
Yeah.
All right. Let's dive into some news that happened this week. So the first thing here is Microsoft only bought Bethesda after learning that Starfield might have been a PlayStation exclusive. And this was David Carousel, right?
I think it's Carcassol.
Carcassol at PSU. I butchered David's name. I'm sorry, David. Okay. So this, it was interesting because this came from all the FTC hearings and stuff that are coming up right now in the reasoning of Bethesda being purchased, and the reason it's brought up, right, is they're using this actually as a point to say, we think you are going to keep Activision games exclusive to Xbox. And they've said, oh, well, 10 years, blah, 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 blah. I think it was you that shared, it was a video, I think they called it out, where in 10 years time, Microsoft might release like 2 or 3 Call of Duty games.
Yeah, at most,
right? So you're getting 2 or 3 games over a 10-year period. And I've said countless times already that after that 10 years is up, they will likely reevaluate and at that point determine, do we actually keep these on PlayStation, Nintendo, or do we keep them exclusive?
Right? Are there even going to be consoles in 10 years? That's
too.
Even a question that I don't think anybody's addressing at this point.
Well, we know there's going to be a PS6, which means
I guess it will still be in its lifetime. So whether there will be a PS7 and Xbox, whatever.
Yeah, that we don't know. But we do know that console life cycles are about 8 years time. We're probably about 4 years into this current one. No, not even that. It's only been a few years. So the next consoles really shouldn't even be out till 2028. So, when you consider that, you're looking at 2036 is when the PS7 would be released. So, I mean, that's so far in advance. But that said, I mean, anything can happen, right, in the next 10 years with this deal. But what they're saying is Microsoft initially came out and said, oh, yeah, Bethesda games, we're considering a multi-platform. They're not always going to be exclusive, blah, blah, blah. Well, now you've got Starfield is exclusive, Elder Scrolls is exclusive. So Microsoft, because the deal has already gone through, has kind of rolled it back and said, no, we're going to keep these to ourselves. And so the FTC's argument is, well, what is stopping you from doing that down the road? You're saying all this that you're doing right now, but you said that as well before purchasing Bethesda. And now we're looking at a situation where you're not going to have Bethesda games on other consoles. So what's to stop you from doing that with Activision? And of course, they've noted Call of Duty, it'd be stupid and asinine to not have it on other consoles because it's a money-making machine, which is true to some respect. But what about all of the other IPs that Activision has under it that will no longer be multi-platform? They'll be exclusive to Microsoft, right? So that's what everybody keeps forgetting, is that Activision has a crap ton of games that are under that arm, right? And that's all gone with this acquisition. And Microsoft is, I don't know if they've continually said it, but I think there's been leaked emails or discussions that they're looking to take Sony out, and they see
that was in 2019 when that email came out. So that was years before any of this even got started. And objectively, is the goal of every company to destroy every other company that they consider competition. I don't think that was news to anybody, really. It was damning to see it in email, though.
It is, except for the fact that Microsoft has continually said that this will help with competition.
Well, there is hardly any competition now in their eyes, too. They keep saying, we're in such a solid third place, and that is so true. Microsoft's, I feel like I'm a little unaware of exactly what the numbers are, because I only ever see reports coming out of Japan with Famitsu and stuff. There's always more, or I don't know who reports them actually, but they report all the sales. Spawnwave goes over it every month, and Xbox is buried at the bottom of the list.
I'll tell you right now,
they get just destroyed in all these other markets. I'm sure the American market is a lot closer.
Console sales as of right now It is 125 million for Switch, which we already
Yeah.
knew that was the case because they came out during PS4. PS5 is 37.89 million, and then Microsoft is sitting at 21 million, 21.8 million.
Yeah. So I mean, like the amount of what this is going to do for Microsoft versus how much it's going to hurt PlayStation, like I feel like everybody's like, oh, it's all about just Call of Duty. Call of Duty is going to make or break PlayStation. Meanwhile, like PlayStation is putting out so many exclusives that like Xbox players like don't even have like barely a leg in the genre. Like I don't know what it's costing Microsoft to put out all these deals to get like Persona and stuff pushed over to their consoles, but I mean, they're definitely not doing it for free. And you know how much PlayStation is paying Sony or Square to not put anything on Xbox. Like I feel like this is all kind of backwards and crappy. Like these companies are supposed to be trying to serve the end users, and really all they're trying to do is make it as bad as they can for the other people's users so that they don't stay on that platform as much as they can help it. Like they're not trying to encourage competition in the way that's like, oh, let's just like make great games with first party studios. They're just trying to cut everybody's knees out by spending money and buying stuff and you know losing jobs and closing studios and making studios make games that they don't even want to make. Like I think we heard about like Redfall, that like Arcane Awesome lost like half their staff because they didn't want to work on that type of game. And it's like it's already really hard out there in the job market for this industry, and when you're not thinking of like what actually you should be doing for the consumers and what you should be doing for the devs and just what you can do to screw the other guy, like that's when we get into these like real console wars. And we're seeing a lot of this behind the scenes now, and it's ugly and I don't like it. And I I just want this to be over. I feel like we've talked about this many times. I, at the end of the day, I'm kind of on the side of don't let it go through, purely because screw the company. Like if that's what the big corporation wants, no doubt it's going to be worse for us somehow. Like even if I wind up getting games, for free on Game Pass, like I don't necessarily know that that's worth it for me to say that that's a good deal and how things should go. Like screw all companies, and I hope none of them get what they want.
The only way that this ends up being good for gamers, and I believe I've noted this before, is if Microsoft does not release another Xbox console and Game Pass becomes available on Nintendo and PlayStation and PC.
Yeah.
And like your TV and other areas, right? And they are purely releasing games, and that's what they focus on.
Your new TV probably has Xbox built into it.
Doubtful because it's a Sony Bravia.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm a Bravia guy for sure. But yeah, so I've been against this from the very start, right? And it's not from a PlayStation aspect. It's from Microsoft locking things behind Microsoft, and historically has not exactly done the best job with their games and releases. And we're even seeing that with a recent comment that was made from, I think it was Phil Spencer, that the new Elder Scrolls, they're still 5 years away, they feel, from that launching. So,
well, I mean, that's because Todd Howard's been working on Starfield.
yeah,
like they're hoarding that IP and not letting it get out to other studios to work on this kind of stuff because it's got to be a Bethesda game.
Yeah, and I get that. But if 5 years from now, you realize it'll be 17 years since the last Elder Scrolls is out.
I mean, we're getting close to that on GTA, and that's not even in this mix of stuff.
Yeah, but except GTA, they continue to innovate and do things in GTA and expand upon that world and do things that are new to the player and are still fun. Right?
I mean, not to give Bethesda too much credit, they did make like Elder Scrolls Blades, and they have released like anniversary edition of Skyrim on everything except for, your water heater at this point.
Yeah. It's just one of those things though, like,
and they've made more games than Rockstar has in the interim. Rockstar made Red Dead, and Bethesda made Fallout 76, Fallout 4, Starfield. Like, they've been busy doing stuff. Like, at least there's things to show.
They have been, except, Rockstar has put out what could be argued as like 10 out of 10 games, right? That are just stellar in performance and, just all around fantastic.
I mean, the most selling piece of media ever made by humanity
is Tetris. No, I'm just kidding. Actually, I think it is Tetris, but GTA.
No, it's GTA 5.
Is it 100% GTA 5?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's the point though, right? Like, they are continuing to work on those things because they generate money. They're done correctly. Fans enjoy it. There's nothing wrong with them, or not that there's nothing wrong with them, but they put a lot of work into those to make them as perfect as they can, right? Whereas Bethesda is releasing buggy mess after buggy mess and jank games, right? And they're pumping out more games, but would you rather have quality over quantity? I'd
rather have a game more than once a decade.
Yeah.
Either way you cut it.
And they're saying 5 years, right? Well, it could be longer for all we know. It could be 8 years from now. And now you're looking at 20 years, 20 years to get the next iteration of, Elder Scrolls. That's stupid.
Elder Scrolls came out in 2011.
Yeah. That is
2031. That's 8 years from now.
That's 12 years since 2011. Right? They said it's going to be 5 years.
But a 3-year delay beyond 5?
Who knows?
I mean, unless they have to do like the Metroid Prime 4, where they just like, all right, it's been 3 years. Let's scrap it all and start over.
There you go. They could do that. There could be a whole change in the guard. There could be shifts in Microsoft in general.
It'll probably be like Todd Howard's last game.
If they even get there. So
anyways,
putting it all that in perspective, it's a huge mess. It's not good for gamers in general. None of us is, and I really do feel like we need to hope for the best and that Microsoft does not acquire Activision at this point.
Well, without leaving this topic and coming right back to exactly what we were talking about, Sony says it won't give Activision PlayStation 6 information if Microsoft acquires them. This is not something I had ever thought about until Jim Ryan came out with this week in a statement. But I mean, I guess it makes sense. Like, if you want your trade secrets and you don't want to just let everybody know what your next console is going to be before, it has to be known, then you probably can't send dev kits to the enemy. So this is kind of a weird, brilliant, stupid thing where PlayStation accuses Microsoft, saying, well, even if they give us, a new Call of Duty, they're probably going to make it terrible. They'll give our players a worse experience than their players. And now Jim Ryan has ensured that will happen.
Yeah, he pretty much has. So this is Tom Henderson at Insider Gaming with this one. And I'm 100% on Jim Ryan's side in this case. It would be stupid. Why would you hand over dev kits to a developer that is underneath your competitor? That's owned by, it makes no sense, absolutely no sense to say, here's a PS6 dev kit a year and a half before it's released so that you could pass it to your bosses so they could see it. Like, no NDA in the world is going to stop that.
Yeah, especially when Phil's like, I gotta go do a walkthrough at this studio.
Yeah, it's just never going to happen. So the way that these games will be built in the future, if this happens, is all Activision games would actually, before, obviously once the PS6 is released, it's a different case, but anything before that would have to be developed as if it was being developed for the PS5.
Well, I mean, how many games are going to be a launch lineup though? Like, that's really what we're considering. I mean, I guess launch lineup in the modern era is probably like the first 2 years at this point. So it's like, how many games would Activision Blizzard realistically produce to be targeted at, the first 2 years of the release of the next console? And how much of that is actually going to be crossover? Like, for this current era, so many games came out on PS4 and PS5, simultaneously to cover, the gap in the cross gen here. And we're just kind of now finally starting to get away. Like Xbox is like, okay, we're not showing off any more things for the Xbox One. That's a dead console. I don't know that Sony has officially said that, or that they're not going to be releasing anything else first party on PS4 anymore, but they're the one who believe in generations.
Yeah,
So
Sony usually supports things up to like 10 years, typically, as far as what I've seen.
yeah, so I mean, it's not like it's going to be like, oh man, every Blizzard game's only going to be on PS5 and it's going to suck and you won't be able to get it on PS6. Like that'll only last as long as Sony is willing to let it. I mean, you could send them a dev kit 6 months before the console comes out. It's not going to change anything. Microsoft's not going to all of a sudden like retool their whole console and, buy new chip sets and go to different manufacturers and stuff because you've got like more eyes in your processor than their flux capacitors have. I don't know how it works.
Yeah, I totally get that point. I don't think it's a matter of like, Sony will only let it happen as long as Sony's willing to let it happen. I think it's more so kind of what I said before, right? Like it'll be optimized for PS5 at first. PS6 will come out and then they'll say, okay, here's a dev kit for PS6, right? Like you wouldn't do it before your launch, but after launch, there's no stopping Microsoft from grabbing a PlayStation 6 and being like, oh, we're
I
going
don't
to
know,
go
man.
ahead
Those
and
resellers are tough.
oh yeah, that's true. Can Microsoft get their hands on a PS6 at that point in time?
I
Will
don't know
there
what
be
kind of
another
bots are
global
they going to have in 5 years.
will there be a global crisis that prevents the PS6 from being purchased by your general consumer? Who knows?
Oh man, don't say that. Not the pandemic 2.0.
Pandemic 2.0. COVID, the return.
Little did we know Microsoft's strategy was to release a pandemic to screw the PlayStation 6's launch.
Yeah, it wasn't. It was Tencent. It was Tencent that did it. They're like, we're going to ruin all of the gaming industry. Cell phones forever.
Everybody play more League.
That's all it was. Tencent screwed everybody. They released the virus. So let's see. I guess my last point here, and it's just something I'm restating from prior episodes, is if this deal goes through, it's open season, right? So Sony is going to most likely make a huge. I think they'll make a huge
Square.
move. Yeah, well, they will definitely buy Square. I think that's one for sure. But the other one, I mean, Take-Two is always the one that everybody looks at, right? Like, can Sony buy Take-Two? What better statement than to be like, screw you, Microsoft, than buying GTA and Red Dead and saying, guess what? All your players, sure, you can go ahead and have Call of Duty, but are they going to get GTA? And at that point, that might actually be the solution, right? Like, okay, you bought a big guy, we're going to buy a big guy. Oh, you want GTA? Okay, well, let's go ahead and have an agreement that you'll bring Activision games over and we'll go ahead and send you these games.
Yeah, I mean, Take-Two has a huge catalog of stuff. And I mean, that would be kind of like the next real biggest target. And honestly, probably more of a spread out target. Like as popular as Bethesda games are, they're all the same game. Like you're only targeting one group. But with Take-Two, you've got everything from NBA 2K to BioShock and Borderlands and Grand Theft Auto. Like they've got such a portfolio of things to draw from. Like that's really like a huge boost to like, look at the variety that they would be able to put out on PlayStation Plus, as a network versus, once every 5 years, you'll get like a really sweet RPG from Xbox.
Yeah, I could see that being the next move. Like that's the next chip to fall in all of this. That will in Square for sure. Like I don't see a future in which Sony does not respond by buying Square.
Yeah, the biggest problem with I think Square getting bought up is just like, I mean, I would hope that their relationship with other platforms like Nintendo and stuff like that would be intact, where we would still be able to get things like a Final Fantasy IX remake on Switch. But if they're owned solely by Sony, is Sony going to let that happen? Are they going to have room to be like, hey, guess what? All the Japanese consoles, we're in the same, boat. We're going to help them out and be friendly, but screw you, Xbox, and then just release things on everybody but Xbox, PC, Switch 2, PS6, and just leave Xbox to die on the side. Like, they could totally do that and just pretend like Xbox doesn't exist and go back to the 90s of a two-party system, pretending like Sega doesn't exist.
They pretty much could.
Or they could buy Sega.
Dude, if they bought Sega, that'd be insane. I mean, there's so much good stuff that Sega releases. And then
is there?
And then yeah.
I think there's so much good stuff they have the potential to release.
Okay, that's true. Well, they have Yakuza. Like, Yakuza's
oh, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, you got Yakuza, you got Sonic, you got all of the Sega properties that are on there. Jet Set Radio, right? So, Jet Set Radio, you got that. We played.
I love how people talk about that like it's a real franchise. Like, aren't they going to make like the second or third game ever for that? Maybe in a year.
It'd be the third game. Crazy Taxi. Come on, you got tons of games on there. But Sony hypothetically says we're releasing a PS6, and guess what? Sega's releasing a Dreamcast 2 at the same time. We'll bring in all the money. So that'd be a chess move right there, Ryan. All right. So diving into our last piece here of the news is a Nintendo shareholder meeting was disrupted by a ranting Splatoon 3 fan. This is Chris Scullion at VGC Video Game Chronicle. So
I brought this up.
I brought it up because, like, an episode, it was last week, you actually mentioned the shareholder meeting where this guy went on a rant about F-Zero remake, right? And if it was happening, and
that was a few months back.
Yeah, and he bought shares to specifically ask about this. And this article happened to fall in my lap. I'm like, this is great. Like, the next part of our discussion here. So basically, this guy was bitching about the customizations on male characters and how they did not have an equal amount of customizations on female characters.
Other way around.
Okay, I thought it was the opposite. So yeah, basically the lack of customizations for one gender over the other in the game. And this guy, he goes on like this multi-sentence rant of a question, and they're just like, your question's too long to answer. And he just continues going on. And then they finally answer back and are like, thank you so much for supporting our game and your valued opinion. This is what he got.
Yeah.
And he bought like $3,250 in shares. It was like 30,000 yen worth of shares, I want to say. Or was it 30,000 or $300,000 worth of yen? I don't remember. I don't know conversion rates.
$3,570 in US, and that's 512,000 yen.
Okay, so there you go. That's a lot of yen. And the guy pretty much sold his Switch OLED, bought and sold other things like to try and get that money. And
the ultimate cult of Nintendo. I'm going to sell all my Nintendo stuff so I could complain to Nintendo about how they're not Nintendoing the way I want.
The best part about it, though, is the line that says his parents told him to stay out of it.
Oh, yeah. He should have listened to them. Doesn't he know this is where microtransactions are born? Like, this guy sold his own Nintendo stuff because he wants more just add-on customization. Nintendo's like, oh, man, if he's willing to sell his whole console, imagine how much we could sell a haircut for if we only charged like $4 or $5. We could sell 1 million of them.
Nintendo's gonna go like fully just go into microtransactions because this dude. So what was the other piece I was gonna bring here? I really hope that they had a good earnings call because otherwise, can you imagine you sell all of your Nintendo stuff to get on the line and bitch at Nintendo, and then they have a poor earnings, and the money you just spent goes down like 10% because Nintendo had bad earnings. So
all the shareholders are like, he's right about the customization. Drop the price. We're backing out. If I don't see an inkling mohawk, you're done, Nintendo.
Yeah. Good stuff. So that was fun. Anything else you want to add to that?
I don't know, man. Like, as interesting as it is to see this repeatedly happen, I'm just wondering, like, when Nintendo's like, okay, there's shareholders and then there's weird people. we need to find a way to separate the two in the meeting room. Like go into the Zoom lobby and just be like, okay, yep, that's a company, that's a company, that's a company. Who's this dude?
Who's Jim?
Why does he have the minimum amount? How does $3,000 get you into a shareholder meeting? Like, that's not a lot of money for like that type of platform, it seems.
Why does he have a Princess Peach picture for his Zoom profile image?
Right.
I could see Nintendo saying, we're getting a lot of fans that are asking questions. Let's raise that up to $10,000 instead.
Yeah. Well, I'm pretty sure I thought the F-Zero guy had to buy I thought he bought like 30 grand worth of stock or something crazy.
I don't know. I don't remember. Well, either way, like if that's all it costs and you can just buy shares, bitch to a company and sell your shares afterwards, I think that's pretty solid. That's a pretty solid investment, right?
Yeah, the guy spent $40K in stock for that one. I guess the Splatoon meeting was just cheaper.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe it wasn't as good of an earnings call. That one did take place in Japan, though, so I don't know if maybe that's like a Japanese stock market thing compared to maybe the one the F-Zero guy was a U.S. stock market.
I don't know. I'm sure either way it was like not worth it.
Yeah, probably not. I mean, it's not like the guy lost a bunch of money. Like it's stock, right? So it's volatile, but like he can technically sell it and get all his stuff back. It's not like he bought a ticket for like a question and that's it. It ends there, right? Like he bought a ticket and now he could sell said ticket and either make more money or lose a small portion of it or hold on to it and wait for the future. So, which honestly might be worth waiting because if they announce a new console soon, that guy could make a little extra money there on the side. But he won't be able to play Splatoon 3. That's the issue. All right. Our inflation deflation segment of the week is the original Demon's Souls, Kingsley's Adventure. So this was developed by Psygnosis, published by Psygnosis, designed by James Smith, released in September of 1999. It is an action-adventure. Reception is a 7-ish. I question those people. And a plot. The story focuses on Kingsley, an orphaned fox who is adopted by the king and queen of the Fruit Kingdom. Kind of would have been better if they said Fur Kingdom, but I'll go Fruit Kingdom. Who live in Carrot Castle. Is a carrot a fruit, technically?
I don't know. Does it have seeds? Isn't that?
I think they do on the inside. You should look that up. I'm actually kind of curious now. Kingsley's
root vegetable.
So it is a vegetable. So how is it a fruit kingdom, but they live in Carrot Castle? This is already wrong, Ryan.
The game rabbits, is a failure. Man.
Yeah. Kingsley's father was a true knight of the Fruit Kingdom. It's a vegetable kingdom. So his goal is to become a true knight like his father. Ryan, I had a hell of a time with this game. So you go into it, and then I will bitch.
So
I'll pay like $5 to bitch and ask my questions.
I had a bit of a harder time getting in just because I am going the game preservation route of playing this, and I was having a little problem with my preservation software. But by the time I got in there and started playing the game, like I had read the reviews a little bit last week when we picked this game out, and John had let me know it's the pre-Dark Souls, and it is like an old school PlayStation tank controls game. So, moving left and right will turn your character and you kind of have to drive them like a car. And
right.
You can use like the
difference between tank controls is you actually can use 2 joysticks.
Oh, I didn't have joysticks. I got just the PlayStation Classic controller.
And you only use your D-pad. That's it. Yeah. Go on.
I mean, have you never played the original Resident Evil? It's the same tank controls. Tank controls are tank controls.
I don't like tank controls.
Well, nobody does. That's why they don't do them anymore. But I mean, as far as like what I played, I didn't really have too much trouble with it. Like, obviously, like having to back up or like I would open a chest and like the coins would come out and I'd like back up and then I'd like sidestep to the right and sidestep to the left and then like do an about face and walk away. Like I kind of knew that the controls were going to be finicky, so I was trying to be very deliberate anyways. Like if I had gone in just expecting like whatever kind of game, I would have been like, wow, but like I was kind of ready for that experience. You're a cute little fox. You start off at a castle. You do like a tutorial where you learn how to block and learn how to fight and, get a crossbow and stuff like that. And then as soon as you start running into enemies, you just like kick these spiders. Like you don't even stab them with your sword. I'm like, what's going on here? But I don't know. It's just kind of a classic, like, hey, you got to go save the kingdom from this bad guy and learn how to be a true hero. I mean, we didn't really get too far.
I did.
The one thing I will say, though, is the intro song in the first level slaps. That was a great, like, little catchy tune. I was into that.
Dude, everything about this game, other than the controls, is very lovable, actually.
There was
So
like
even like
great shadowing in the rooms and the corners and stuff.
when this game booted up, I was like, holy shit, am I in for a treat? Maybe. I don't know. Is it too good to be true? It was too good to be true.
Mhm.
But, like the voicing is like that Banjo Kazooie style, right? Where it's like, "Wah, wah, 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 wah," and then the
Yeah.
different, it sounded just like I was playing Banjo Kazooie so much that I actually had to look it up. And I'm like, did Cynosis, like, are there team members that came from Rare? Like, or did they just straight up copy homework here? It was a copy homework situation. But it was really cool in that respect. And then those controls, man, they are horrible. They are some of the worst controls I've played tank games in the past, and I don't like tank controls. This was by far like some of the worst tank controls I've ever done. So after your part where you're kicking the spiders and everything else, I ended up getting to the bar where I don't even remember his name.
Briny
Who it
Jim.
was. Yeah, Briny Jim. So that's what we're looking for. He has a secret door within his bar that makes you question if he has a secret door in his bar that leads to the location of the lighthouse, where they also happen to have everything that's going on, right? The people that stole shit. Is he not involved? Is Briny Jin not involved in the entire process? I would think he is. He's an evil guy for sure. But I didn't get that far. So I went through his secret exit in his bar, which happens to be behind a bar, and it makes no sense because it's like a giant door that leads to the back outside. You go up the lighthouse, and then in the lighthouse, for some strange reason, I don't understand why this is, but they said to travel from island to island, you have to go to the lighthouse, which is on a giant hill. So I'm confused. Why would you want to build an underground layer that goes from island to island, but you have to climb up to a lighthouse on a hill to then go all the way down and then go to the island? Like, wouldn't it behoove them to just make it lower to the ground? Like
Or
that,
take a boat.
or take
That's
a
usually
boat.
how people get to islands.
Yeah, or that. But it's a secret
Were you
layer.
like going under like tunnels to the islands, or did you not get to the islands?
I did not. Well, no, I started to get to the island. Actually, I did get to the island,
Is
and
it
this is where.
not just like a fast travel location or something?
Oh, no, no fast travel. But here's the thing. So you go into this underground layer, and you were faced with crabs. And I don't think there's any kind of good crabs, but you're faced with crabs. And
Oh, dude, good crabs are covered in butter.
okay, that's true. I was thinking the other crabs. So these crabs attack you, similar to the other crabs. And multiple are coming out at you at the same time, and you have to kick them, right? And they go away, but then they consistently
They're just
reappear.
like the spiders,
Kind of,
like
yeah.
crabbier.
Yeah, but crabbier. And so then you've got these, I don't even know what they were, fish people or something. And so they're attacking with a sword and shield, and trying to hit them is terrible because your control is shifting. Now realize I have an infant on my lap while I'm trying to play, so that doesn't help the situation as he's trying to grab the right joystick. But luckily for me, the right joystick does nothing. So we're good. And I'm killing off these enemies, and then comes the platforming. Or no, the platforming doesn't come yet. Then comes the random need to pull a switch. And when you pull a switch, a giant barrel chases you down. But as you've already explained, when you're trying to back up, you slowly back up. And if you try to turn aside, you slowly turn aside. It's pretty much like a 98% guarantee that that barrel rolls on you and you lose a heart. And that happens 4 times. Then you have to attack multiple enemies. You attack another guy who has a spear. And the way this game works, it's hard to like block with your shield and then run up and attack, right? Because it all kind of happens at one time. Like there's no in transition jumping. There's no in transition. There is to an extent, but it's very minimal. So this guy with the spear, he killed me like twice. Knock him out, he's done. Then the platforming comes. You have to platform across like 5 wooden bridges with cannons firing at you in the process. And as I mentioned before, the transition jumping is not exactly fluid. So every time you get hit by a cannonball, you lose a piece of health. Every time you fall into water, you lose a full piece of health and have to go back to the beginning. That took me forever until I finally got it down, and you're met with a giant shark guy with a mace who you knock out. Finish that off. But then here's the worst part, and where I kept dying, is there's a hill, and on this hill are boulders, just, 4 or 5 boulders kind of sitting there. And you're trying to run down this hill, and there's almost this impossible jump that I could never time correctly. I don't know what was up with it, but like every time I hit jump, my character wouldn't jump, and I would just fall down. And you'd fall down maybe 10 feet, and Kingsley would die, and you'd have to start over. And I just couldn't get that jump down. And then once you lose all 5 of your lives, guess where you start? The first part of a lighthouse, and having to go through it all over again. And after that, I just said, screw it. I'm done with this game. I've put in like 40 minutes. I'm finished. So cute game. If you can get over to controls and you want to put some time towards that, I would think it's a fun game overall. As frustrating as it is cute. It is good graphics. It does have good music that slaps, as Ryan said. And the story seems pretty okay for what you're playing. Brass tacks wise, complete in box, $61.82. It peaked at $85.77 in October of 2021, as did all games. It's trending down. A loose copy is $46.62. That's currently at its peak, and it is trending up for a loose copy. So
maybe we should ask for a remake.
If this game was remade with new controls and put onto current gen consoles, I would absolutely buy it and play it through. Like it's actually a decent game. It's just the controls completely ruin it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a big part of it, obviously. It'd be one thing if like the graphics were crappy, but like everything else is fun. But no, like if it's unplayable, what the hell are you gonna do? So I assume you and I are probably on the same boat here this week.
Yeah, definitely. Well, yeah, I would say this is inflated. It's just, I guess there's just not a whole lot of them. Is that why it's so expensive?
I don't know. I mean, there's not a whole lot of games like this, I guess. Like, I mean, realistically, when you think about it, it does look like a very good game. It's very well polished for a PS1 game. I just had it on a 4K TV, and it looked fantastic. Right. And maybe there's input lag on my part. Maybe that's part of it with that jump, but I doubt it, because I do play other PS1 games and have no issues.
Mm-hmm.
And Nintendo 64 games and such, there's never any problems on the TV. But I honestly don't know why it's so expensive. I would guess it's an uncommon game, didn't sell a whole lot of copies, and it has just enough of like that fun aspect to it that people want to play it.
Mm-hmm.
And want to collect it. You want to know how much I paid for this game?
$12.
$3.
That's much better.
That is a much better price. And I paid that in 2014. That's what I paid, was $3.
Yeah, so definitely not a game for everyone. If you are, good at tank control games, and a healthy challenge of an old school platformer doesn't deter you, I mean, this is the game for you, honestly. Like, it could be like a nice hidden gem out there for some people, or whatever.
Well, I'll put it at a 5, by the way, in terms of like a score out of 10. I saw it 7-ish, and I think a 5 is about right. 4 to 5 would be an appropriate score in my book for this game. So,
yeah.
All right. That said, I think next week, if you're feeling for it, we should play some Deathloop.
Oh, here you go. Look, there's 4 players that have done 9 runs on speedrun.com for Kingsley's Adventure. If you can get under an hour and 3 minutes, you'll be the king of Kingsley's Adventure.
No, you would be a true knight.
Oh, true knight of Kingsley's Adventure.
Of the Carrot Castle Vegetable Fruit Kingdom. Yeah.
TM.
Yeah. Okay. So Deathloop next week?
Yeah, Deathloop.
That sounds like a much better game to play. Yeah, I think I'm going to enjoy that. Okay, well, this has been episode 241 of the Game Deflators Podcast. My name's John.
I'm Ryan.
And thanks for listening.